I was like, please fix my printer. I can't print to it. And it was like, okay, what's the name of the printer? And I gave it the name of the printer, and it literally fixed it. And now it prints. And that's insane.
And then I set up a few AI agents and I had them in Slack and they were literally having a conversation with each other.
I can have it make a presentation for me, and I don't actually need to tell it anything that it can read from a file. And I don't need to tell it what it should look like. And I don't need to tell it how to do things, because if it doesn't know, it can just go figure it out.
It does all that. So now if you go into our website and if you're a tenant, you can ask it all these questions. It goes into RentVine. It looks everything up. It pulls the data. It'll run calculations.
That's crazy.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Evernest Property Management Show. This is a live webinar we're doing. Super excited. We're going to talk about AI, have some incredible guests that are going to join us. Before we get started, I'm going to go through a little intro here. First thing is, we want you to subscribe to our podcast. Gray and I do this podcast. We drop a new episode every 2 weeks. You may not learn a lot, but you'll learn a lot of ways not to build the business. So make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. You can get that anywhere, including YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. So the way this thing, we're going to jump right in, because even though we have 2 hours, I'm super afraid that we're going to run out of time, just because we have so many great people, a lot of thoughts that they're going to share with you. But the first hour is going to be our PM panel, property manager panel. These are 3 early adopters of AI. And our second hour is going to be our vendor panel. So we'll bring them up at the top of the hour, and we're going to discuss AI with the vendors. And just know, go ahead and put in some your questions. I do think we're probably going to have a lot of questions. So if you'll also put in your questions and with maybe a name of the person you would prefer to answer it, that way, in case we do have a bunch of questions. So feel free to load your questions in as we're talking, and it may come up. We may be able to answer them as we're talking through our talk track here. So for those of you who are new to our program, I'm the founder CEO here at Evernest. I've been building this property management business for over a decade. And Gray, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hey everyone, Gray Hall, been with Evernest for about 10 years. And so joined when we had about 1,000 properties. Today, co-host of the podcast, and I run some of our property services and field teams.
All right. And so I want to welcome our distinguished property management panel. First is, all these guys are good friends of mine, but is Peter Lohmann with RL Management. He also runs a business that is growing like crazy called Crane. It's basically and maybe he'll explain it during the show, but it's basically a great way for property managers to get together, almost like a mastermind for property managers. And so Peter, appreciate you coming. Revolution Rental Management CEO Todd Ortscheid. Todd is a consultant. He not only owns a property management business, he's also a consultant. He has a very popular blog, and Peter does as well, sends out a very popular newsletter. And these guys were both talking about AI, so I wanted to get them on and let them expound on what they've been seeing as it relates to property management. And then last is Vikas Gupta. He is our CPO here, Chief Product Officer here at Evernest. And so he's helping us really lean in on this technology, and I thought it would be great to have him. So without further ado, we are going to jump in and start asking these guys some hard questions. So guys, let's go around in that same order, starting with you, Peter. Tell me the first time you realized that AI wasn't just hype. Was there a specific incident where you actually changed how you thought or how you thought your team would work as a result of this?
Great. Well, thanks again for having me, Matthew. I think like a lot of people, my first experiences with ChatGPT, when it sort of had that inflection point where everyone was talking about it a few years ago, that was interesting and got me thinking. At that time, it was more about like, oh, I can use this to, I don't know, write a blog post or something. I think maybe more interesting is that lately there's been sort of another seismic shift in what AI is capable of with agents that can actually do stuff. And I'll give you a specific example that kind of blew my mind from recently. I've been playing more with Claude Code, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I asked it to fix my printer on my computer right here that I'm sitting at, my desktop at work, because I literally just couldn't print to this printer right behind me. See it right there in my office? And I was like, please fix my printer. I can't print to it. And it was like, okay, what's the name of the printer? And I gave it the name of the printer, and it literally fixed it. And now it prints. And that's insane. That blew my mind and gave me one of those moments of like, okay, things are going to change, because if it can fix a printer, surely it can do X, Y, and Z, and your mind's already spinning of the possibilities there. So those are the moments that stand out for me.
That's awesome. Todd, same question. Was there a moment where you were like, holy cow, this is going to be a game changer?
Yeah, I think probably maybe about I mean, same as Peter. I mean, I've been using ChatGPT for a while and everything, just for writing copy and that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's not new, but I think where a kind of a big wake up call was when a friend of mine, Bob Abbott, told me to start experimenting around with OpenClaw about a month ago, and then I set up a few AI agents and I had them in Slack, and they were literally having a conversation with each other. And a meaningful conversation back and forth between these agents, not even between our employees, but just AI talking to AI. And then I looked at that and I said, all right, this is going to be a big difference once this really starts getting deployed. And now I'm using it for coding and everything else. And it's an entirely different world at this point, I think.
And Vikas, same question.
Yeah, I think very similar to both Todd and Peter. I would say two moments for me. First was in sort of the original chatbot era, when probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, when I could just ask it to write code and it would write code, and that code for simple things worked. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a game changer. I definitely did not think it would move as quickly as it has to today. And I think the second moment was in October, November of last year, when I started getting really into Claude Code, and just that aha moment of, similar to Peter, I can just have this thing do things. Like, I can have it make a presentation for me, and I don't actually need to tell it anything that it can read from a file. And I don't need to tell it what it should look like. And I don't need to tell it how to do things, because if it doesn't know, it can just go figure it out. And then you can just layer on these capabilities and encode your preferences and stack and stack and stack. And now all of a sudden, these things that I used to do as part of my day would take a few hours around sort of typical executive white collar work, just automated away. I work in a terminal now, and it does everything for me.
All right, let's get into some practical stuff. Basically, we're going to talk about like what's working today. What are you doing today? Let's start with this question, and Vikas, we'll start with you. Walk us through a specific workflow in your business that AI has meaningfully changed, and what did it look like before, and what does it look like now?
Yeah, I think you can kind of divide it up into two categories. One is sort of the business of running a business, and then the second one is the business of delivering services. And I imagine for the audience, the business of delivering services is probably more interesting than the, making presentations and creating spreadsheets and whatnot. So in that category, where it's had the most impact so far at Evernest is our top of funnel leasing. And right now on text, we're looking into voice, but a large amount of that conversation from prospects and applicants and people who are interested in asking questions about listings that we have in available homes happens over text. And
is this like your in-house tech that you built, or some product?
It's a combination of in-house and third party.
Nice.
So that's We started working on it in June of last year, flipped the switch to fully automated, took humans out of the loop in November, December timeframe, and it's just going. So now we have 24/7 coverage. We have very high quality of response. We have much better adherence to policies. When we change a policy, we just need to change it in one place. It's no longer training 20, 30, 40 folks. And it's always got the most up-to-date information. And so it's taking people fully from prospect to ready to sign a lease on its own.
And Vikas, follow up in the chat channel, who's the third party we're using?
Haven.ai.
Awesome. I actually saw one of the early like conversations between a prospective resident and Haven, and the resident was having a problem getting into the lockbox, and they were getting an error message, and Haven was able to solve, or the AI chatbot was able to solve the problem right there. So Todd, same question for you. What are some specific workflows that you've started to implement?
So one of the things that we just recently did, actually just yesterday, I just had this launched on our website, was we've long had an AI chatbot on the website, but now we have our own proprietary one that we just launched, and now it connects to everything. So, previously we were using JotForm for our AI agent chatbot previously, and it had all of our, documents, all that kind of information. It could answer all kinds of questions. But if a resident got on there and said, "Hey, what's my balance?" Or, if an owner was asking, how much money do I have coming to me on my next deposit? There was no way for any of these third-party products to do that because they wouldn't interface with anything. What we custom built, and I did it in literally, I think, 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. This was done using Cursor and Claude Code. It does all that. So now if you go on our website and if you're a tenant, you can ask it all these questions. It goes into RentVine, it looks everything up, it pulls the data, it'll run calculations.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's like a person is there 24 hours a day monitoring. So
how do you verify that the person chatting through the bot is actually the tenant?
So it does ask some confirming questions, what's your name, what's your email address, those sorts of things. So, I mean, there is obviously some risk there, but I mean, it's not doing anything different than what a member of our staff would do. If someone called into the office and asked, what's your name, what's your email, we'd give them information. So, it's not really much different.
And Todd, for clarity, you built this?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I don't code. I'm not a software engineer. What I do is I go into Cursor, which connects to Claude, or now they actually have their own thing. Composer 2 just launched today, which is actually faster and better than Opus. But it does it. I just told it what I wanted. I said, "Hey, we've got this chatbot. I'd like to replace it with our own that connects to all of our other software that you are aware of. Can you do that?" And then 2 hours later, we were launching it. So, I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's really, I'm kind of nervous about it to a certain extent because I'm like, should I launch this? But then at the same time, I go in and I test it. Everything works fine. It's better than a person. So, it's that weird middle ground right now where you don't quite trust it, but at the same time, you kind of should because it's doing better than the people are.
And Todd, we probably have a wide variety of people that this is like brand new to them, all the way to some experts. Can you just tell them what Cursor and Claude are real quick?
Yeah, so
layman's
Claude
terms?
is just a large language. So it's like ChatGPT.
It's another version of ChatGPT or Gemini, right? Okay.
Exactly. You got Gemini, you got Copilot, you got all these different large language models out there. But Cursor is basically it's custom built for using these models to code. So all it does, it's built around writing code, writing software. So, I mean, it'll do anything. So literally, I'm a giant nerd. Everybody knows this. I asked it the other day, write me a Star Trek game. And it went and it spent like 25 minutes. And then I had a procedurally generated galaxy of 200,000 star systems I could visit. Just like that. I mean, so it's not just business. You can use this for anything, personal use, whatever you want to use it for.
I think
Awesome.
what you highlighted, Todd, is there's a lot of vendors using AI in different components. That's a very niche problem. There's probably not a vendor right now maybe solving that largely, but the ability to do that in 2 hours and kind of spin that up, that's what's happened in the past like 2 or 3 months. Is me knowing how to write code. I can go in there and ask Claude to be able to build this, get some proof of concept, start to try it. And so I think the speed at which we're going to start building this, and it's a lot of ideas from operators. Like a lot of operators don't know how to write code. There's like a big divide between that. You might start getting different types of ideas if operators have the ability to create some of the software.
Peter, same question for
Yeah.
you.
I'll give two quick examples, one from sort of PM operations and another from content. So from the PM operations side, I think what's getting the heaviest use at our business is the AI that's built into Property Meld. I think it's called Max, but it handles incoming tenant maintenance requests and ensures that we get all the right information, often including the photo or two, and helps kick off that whole process. And so it saves a lot of time from our team having to email or text or call back and forth with tenants, or from vendors showing up and not having everything they need to fix it right the first time. So that product's been out for a while now and seems to work really well for us. That's, I think, the AI tool that really gets the heaviest use around our office. In terms of content, I've got a couple things I built recently that I'm really into. So I think some of you know I write a newsletter for the industry. I also have a podcast, and I go on webinars like this. So I need ideas of things to talk about. And Todd probably relates to this. He puts out a ton of content as well. And, a lot of those ideas come from operating a property management business. I'm here in my office, so I can step out the door and hear problems, which is great. But I like to take a bigger pulse on the industry and figure out what else are people having issues with or discussing. And there's two great sources of that sort of signal. One is the conversations that are happening inside Crane, which there's dozens and dozens of posts and maybe 100 comments a week in there. The other is the conversations that people are having with Peterbot, which is like an AI version of me on my website. So I built a little tool with Claude Code that takes the conversations from Crane and takes the conversations that people are having with this Peterbot, synthesizes them and pulls out themes and gives me some content ideas of things I can talk about or write about for the week. So it runs once a week and does that. So, not everyone runs a newsletter, but a lot of you have to create content for your property owners or even for prospective tenants. And so if you can find places where your current customers or potential customers are having conversations and use AI to pull that and sort of synthesize it into some type of content planning document, AI has made that way more feasible, because I couldn't go through and read all that every week just in one go, much less like synthesize it into these bigger themes. AI is great at doing things like that.
Yeah, we actually just got done with our executive offsite last week, and we recorded 2 days of our meetings and then reduced it down to, basically the big ideas that we discussed. And it even had created to-dos that we decided coming out of it. Now, we had them written down anyways, but it's just shocking what you can do with the information and how it's, to your point, Peter, it synthesizes large amounts of information down to something you can, as a human, digest. One thing I'm curious about, you mentioned Claude, Peter. What are some other tools that you're using?
So I recently shifted mostly over from ChatGPT to Claude. Claude actually has 3 tools built into it. They've got the chat, which is just like ChatGPT. They have co-work, which can kind of do stuff on your computer for you. It can download and run apps. It can click around on websites. It can fix your printer. And then it has code, which you can use not only to create applications, like you might think with the word code, but code is actually kind of stealthily one of the most powerful parts of Claude. And so you can use code to do all kinds of different things that aren't you wouldn't necessarily think of as like creating an app, but are sort of technical in nature.
Can you explain the connections component of co-work? That was like mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. So if you go into Claude, if you download the desktop app and then go into the settings, you can add these things called connections, and it can hook into your Notion, your Zapier, your Google Docs, your email, your Granola, which I'll talk about in a second. Like a lot of the tools that you're using now have these connections. I think it's like MCP is the technical name for it, where once you hook that up, now you can, through the chat interface or through any of these tools, ask it either questions about, hey, give me the summary of the meeting I just had, or what does our Notion doc say about if a tenant is locked out? but it can also do things. So you could say, create a Notion page for this scenario and use my conversation with this person as, to start with, and it will go do that for you. So yeah, the connections are like a supercharge or superpower for Claude. I'll mention another tool that I'm using. I said Granola. So I shifted away from using Fathom to record my meeting notes to Granola. The thing I like best about Granola, honestly, is that it doesn't take up a black screen in your Zoom meetings or in your Google Meets, but you can use it on your phone. So you can capture real world conversations like at a conference or in a meeting, and you can run it on your computer. It runs as a desktop app. And so, even if you have some people come into your office for a conversation, you can turn it on and it will capture those, and you can do anything with the transcript afterwards. So it's really powerful. I've got other stuff, but I'll pause there. Probably want to hear from other people.
Vikas, tell us some tools that we're using here at Evernest.
Yeah. I think it varies heavily by team and department. Within the product and engineering and the data teams, we're pretty much all in on Claude Code. To write code, to query our data, to prototype, data visualization, where the data team is now working on a natural language query interface for our data to make the team to make the data more available to our various operating teams. And instead of it being sort of preset dashboards with filters, you can just ask questions of the data. So that's within that team. I think across the wider org, Gemini is the primary tool. We're a Google Workspace company. We get Gemini access baked into our Google Workspace account. It has native connections to Google Drive, to Gmail, to the whole sort of Google ecosystem. It piggybacks. I saw there was questions around permissions. It piggybacks on the permissions that are already baked into all of those various services and the Google account. So it makes that permission management problem sort of go away into the background. So if I have access to a Google Doc, I have access to it via Gemini. If I don't, I don't. We don't have to worry about data leakage. We've recently been encouraging the team to build gems, which are similar to ChatGPT projects. So almost like a prepackaged prompt with additional context. So then the entire team is working off the same playbook. We have close to 500 folks. We don't need 500 people writing their own prompts. We need a few people being really good at writing prompts and loading in the right context and maintaining that context so that the rest of the team can then use that. And so various examples there. And we're actually also using those Gemini gems as sort of testing grounds for creating prompts and context packages that we can later build into software. And so, for example, we have a maintenance intake gem that's not super integrated into our workflows. There's still some swivel chair going on, but it's a lot easier for us to iterate over that prompt. And so our maintenance coordinators can take a intake request. They can use that gem to triage it, to see if they need to follow up questions, what those follow-up should be, de-escalation, who to dispatch it to if they need to dispatch. And we're on sort of V7 or 8 of that, which doesn't require any engineering time or no one even to open up an IDE. You're just editing text. And then when that's fully baked, then my engineering team can just go roll it into code, deploy it across the organization. And then we don't have to sort of iterate over that prompt and context through software engineers, which even with Claude Code are still much more expensive. And it's a bit slower to iterate there. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing. Happy to go deeper, Matthew, if you want to.
No, I think that's perfect. One of the things you mentioned was Gemini. Gemini is it's like ChatGPT and Claude. It's just another competitor of that. Gray and I will do some translating for those of you who are just getting started with this. Todd, we talked about a few tools that you're using. Any other tools that you're super excited about?
I'm more focused right now on eliminating tools, to be honest with you. That's what I'm primarily using this for. I mean, I've eliminated probably 3 or 4 software packages this week. I legit feel sorry for the SaaS industry right now because it's just, I look at this and I say, how are you going to keep doing what you're doing? I mean, there's a few specialized products that I think you can't replace, but for the most part, I've eliminated our Airtable subscription, our Jotform subscription, Notion. I mean, it's one thing after another is just dropping by the wayside as we create our own versions of all these things. Calendly was one we did the other day. We just replaced. So, I mean, I'm eliminating tools rather than bringing new ones in. So I'm finally getting to what I hoped to see 15 years ago with this tiny little stack instead of all this software that used to be a full page on my P&L.
Todd, let me ask a follow-up question because, for people who are just getting started, there's some fear around this, right? Like everybody's throwing out all these different tools and like, how do I even, and Vikas, I'm going to come to you because you did something interesting with us last week, but Todd, like what would be your advice for people that are just getting started to how to like wade in? Because it feels like it's already the deep end. And I'm curious how you would, if I came to you and said, "Hey, I want to do something. I want to learn like you have. How do I get started?"
Well, first thing I would tell people is don't just go out and start buying AI stuff because the reality is what's good today won't be next week, and you really got to research it. So, I mean, what I would tell people is go out and get your feet wet in all the different LLMs. So, if you're really used to using ChatGPT like everybody is, I was just reading an article today, like ChatGPT has something crazy, like 70 or 80% of consumer market share. But when you look at the business world, it's almost all Claude. That's who's really doing enterprise and everything. So everybody kind of has this experience with this very small niche of consumer oriented AI. Go out and try the other stuff. Like I tried Grok this week. I'm not an Elon Musk fan, just to be clear, but what he's done with Grok as far as creative generation, if you've never seen it, go into Grok and try Grok Imagination and just ask it to produce whatever video content you want. And what it produces is insane. So go out and try everything first and figure out, what's your whistle and then try that out. But there's so much out there. Don't just think you have to use whatever you're familiar with.
So, one of the things that I learned really early in this process is you can't break these things. It's not like you run into a software and you feel like you're going to break it and you don't understand it. You can literally just ask it, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And
You
so
break in software a lot, Matthew? Is that a big issue for you?
if they gave me a login, I would. I guess the point is like there should be no fear because these things are they're almost helpful to help you understand them. So I think that's a great lead in. So Vikas last week, again, I mentioned we had our executive offsite. Vikas, share the story, and then we could probably share what we did with the audience. I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah. So last week we did a 2-hour sort of hands-on Claude co-work workshop for the executive team, which we had sort of a wide spectrum of sort of AI experience. There's me on the technology side. Then we had some folks.
Us, Vikas. There's me and you on the technology side. We're kind of like expert level.
I was going to give you some kudos, but now I'm just going to skip over that. Now, there are some folks sort of in the middle or closer to me, I should say, Gray, Matthew, a couple other folks who have been using Claude Code or co-work on their own. And then we had some folks whose experience was primarily sort of the ChatGPT chatbot level. And I really just wanted to get everyone in on co-work and get that aha moment that I had in Q4 around you can give this thing access to your information. It can learn how you talk. It can learn how your brand presents itself. It can write on your behalf. It can create on your behalf. It can learn. You can teach it things, and it just gets better to really inform our conversations as an executive team from more of a common understanding of the power of AI as we talk about how we lead our organization through what's going to be very transformative. And I'm sure everyone knows that. And so there was sort of that goal of getting everyone on the same playing field from a capability perspective to inform our strategic conversations. But then there was also the goal of, I want to give everyone on that team the same leverage in their day to day that I'm getting. I'm multiples more productive than I was 6 months ago. And that's a very expensive set of folks. And so they shouldn't be spending 2 hours wrangling data to produce a presentation when you can just chat with something for 5 minutes and then have it go in the background. Then you switch, you can do these things in between meetings. And so that sort of 5 minutes in between meetings becomes productive time as opposed to dead time. So those are the two sort of things. And it was very interesting. I'm happy to share the agenda. We can post that out along with a video. Not that I produced, someone else on YouTube, but I think it's actually like an excellent introduction to cowork. But I did want to react to something Todd said. I have a not quite diametrically opposed opinion to what Todd said, but a little bit opposed. I think there's a lot more gain to be had from getting good at using one tool than dabbling in all the tools. I do think the models are good at different things. So it is helpful to, if you are going to get deep in image or front end or video or creative or code, like there are some variances there, but generally speaking, I think if you're going to go in on a general purpose agent, you're better off learning how to use Claude Code really well, or Cowork really well, or Codex really well, because they are not, Cowork and Code are fairly similar because Cowork was built on top of the code, but Codex is different enough. The concepts are similar, but just some of the setup is different. And the prompts that work well in Claude don't always work the same in Codex. And so there is gain to be had in specialization as well. We've pretty much on our team gone all in on Claude. That would be my recommendation for anyone doing knowledge work. So also I think that's where Anthropic has sort of pushed their business to try and take out that business, Todd, as you mentioned. So my recommendation would be, if you haven't picked one yet, Claude, the Claude ecosystem, Cowork or Code. Someone in the chat mentioned that they've been using Codex. If you're getting really good at using Codex and it's working for you, just get better at using Codex. We do actually, on the engineering side, we do dispatch sub-agents to use all the models. So we'll do like a 3-model code review and a 3-model front-end review and things like that. So you can do things like that. But for day-to-day, like white-collar knowledge work type stuff, like get really good at using something would be my recommendation.
All right, Peter, we're going to move to the next phase. We had 3 big phases we wanted to cover. The next one, and I think there was a question somewhere around here about this, but it's kind of the one everybody wants to know. Like, when does this start to replace people at your organization, or where somebody might leave and you stop hiring? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Now, I think now is the right time to start thinking about that. And I was just talking with my VP of Ops about this and told him, I don't want to hire, if somebody leaves or if we grow, unless they're a property manager, meaning they're accountable for a whole portfolio and speaking with property owners, I don't want to replace them. I want to figure out a way to solve workloads with AI and reallocate tasks. Now, what's going to end up happening is you can't replace a whole role with AI right now, but what you can do is replace like 10 to 40% of a bunch of other people's roles with an AI agent and then shift those tasks around to rebalance. I think that's the right way to be thinking about this, is not replacing whole roles, but replacing functions at your company that may be distributed across a number of people. So it's kind of scary and kind of exciting. It's scary because everyone feels like they're behind all the time, right? Somebody mentioned like, oh, this was released today. I'm like, shoot, I didn't hear about that yet, right? And I feel like I'm on close to the bleeding edge of this stuff. And so it's a little, I don't recall feeling this way as a business owner ever, and I've owned and operated a property management business for about 14 years now. I don't recall ever having this feeling of vague uncertainty and anxiety about the future the way that I do right now, because I worry a little bit that the disruption we're seeing with SaaS, Todd was talking about how he eliminated 4 or 5 different SaaS bills at his property management company. I worry that that could happen to us too, right? How long until somebody makes an AI-powered landlord tool that is able to do 60% of what property managers can do, professional property managers, and it's just good enough to the point where they would prefer to just handle the last 40% with a little bit of help and just do it themselves. So I don't think SaaS is the only industry that's going to be disrupted by AI, and it does worry me a little bit. I think we're years away from any type of major disruption, but I don't know. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it recently.
Todd, you wrote a whole blog post about this when Jack Dorsey, I think, laid off 4,000 people. And that's what I think I side texted you and told you how impressed with the article I was. How are you thinking about replacing people?
Well, it's weird because I'm a former labor union leader. I spent 12 years representing employees in the United States and Canada. So I look at this and I think this is bad. This is really, really, really bad from a labor perspective, because I see 3 years from now considerable unemployment is what I see. Now I like the way you put it though when you did the lead in though, Matt. Matthew, you said that if someone leaves the company, are you going to replace them? Because that's more the way I look at it. I'm not
Sure.
I'm not going to terminate any employees. The reality is I could go tomorrow and I could probably lay off a third of our workforce, is my best guess off the top of my head, and replace them with AI products. But I'm not going to do that. What I've instead decided to do is I'm going to redeploy those human assets to interacting directly with customers and residents, because that's always where I've felt our industry, we're always so focused on efficiency and keeping our DLER up that we have less customer focus than we should. And I look at companies that I love dealing with. It certainly isn't Comcast. It's companies like, Tenant Turner, where I get a 2-minute response time when I send something through the chat. That's what I want my business to be. And I've been struggling for years while maintaining profitability to get us down to, I'm thrilled when we have a 15 or 25-minute response time to emails. And, now we can get it down to be minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and we can have a response. So that's what I'm doing. But ultimately down the road, Peter's absolutely right. This is going to be a situation where we don't have to replace employees when they leave. We're just going to have a much smaller workforce.
Todd, I'll give you an example. Vikas mentioned the AI bot that's basically the leasing chat bot. We basically took our leasing folks, and instead of laying them off or whatever, we had them make more outbound phone calls. So the last quarter, which is arguably one of, in the property management business, probably one of our second slowest quarter compared to maybe Q4, we're leasing more houses than we ever have before, because we're the people that aren't using chat or aren't texting us that want a phone call. Now we're calling back like 15,000 people, and they're answering the phone, and we're leasing more homes. So to your point, you can create a higher level of customer service.
Peter, you mentioned that's an interesting way to think about it, the 10 to 40%, because I think a lot of the questions in there is like, you can't replace a full role today. I think there are components. Like, what are those components, if that were to happen, that you think that AI could replace across kind of all of your people, and then you can reallocate the workload?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts on that. Evernest has done a great job, it sounds like, with prospective tenants. I think about the categories of people that we deal with as a property management company. Prospective tenants, prospective owners, and vendors. Those are like the main categories I think of. And the order in which it makes sense to leverage AI starts with prospective tenants, because frankly, they have the least value to us as a business, and they're probably most tolerant of AI. And then it's going to go to like current tenants, and then current owners, and then prospective owners. Owners, I don't think we're ever really going to move to like an AI solution in terms of comms with owners. because it's just too important, and we're acting as agents on their behalf in a legal capacity. I don't think it's appropriate to give them AI generated responses. So that's like one lens, is like the category of people that we deal with, and whether it would be appropriate to use AI to help. The other is like the functions. So anything where somebody is sitting at a computer and never talks to owners and never goes out in the field, those types of activities are going to be able to be done by AI agents. And that's like a part of everyone's job, or most people's jobs. So if it's like at a computer, now one way to think about this is, unfortunately, like we reconstructed a lot of our job functions to take advantage of being able to use global talent with RTMs. And so unfortunately, a lot of those same types of jobs, I think, are going to be able to be done by AI, because they're clearly not boots on the ground. So you don't need people running around. And for a lot of people, they allocated work where it didn't require speaking to customers. So in some ways, the better set up you were as a business to onboard and work with global talent, which probably meant you had good documentation, good training, well-defined boundaries between work product, or like stages of a workflow. All of those things are going to be very helpful as you try to bring AI into your organization. We love working with our global team. We have 6 or 8 people here all around the world, not looking to get rid of them, but it's that type of work, I think, that's going to be where we start with AI.
And because I'm going to come to you in a second, but Todd, I want to ask a follow-up question, because there's a lot of like AI promoters who would say every other technology in history everybody's been afraid it's going to take away like the horse and buggy, the buggy builders, and then we just reallocated them to building Ford automobiles. Is this different, that this technology is not going to create new opportunities that we can't even fathom today? I'd be curious how you would respond.
I mean, from what I can tell, I can't see what those roles would be. That's kind of the problem. I mean, any other technology you've seen over, the past few centuries, you could imagine something that would still have to be done. Yeah, you can make, a cotton gin, but someone has to fix the cotton gin. I mean, there's always something that, you can point to. But now I look at this and, the reality is AI is smarter than we are in a lot of ways already. And we're not even close to AGI. Artificial general intelligence. We're not even close. And, we're probably several years out if we can get there, but we're still at a point where, if I wanted to know something about, pick any subject, philosophy, evolution, cosmology, whatever it is, I would feel more comfortable going and asking Claude to do deep research on that and give me an answer than I would going to my closest PhD who's an expert in that field, because they're a human and they're going to make a mistake. The AI probably isn't. There are hallucinations, but they're very rare. So, I don't really see where that's going to happen. All the experts I listen to in the field, and it's people who have an interest in downplaying the negative effects of this. You listen to people like Sam Altman, for example, they're not downplaying it. They're being right out in front and telling people there's going to be a lot of jobs eliminated. So I think we need to take that seriously.
Yeah. Because talk about jobs. How are we thinking about that here at Evernest?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to what we heard from Peter and Todd. I think there's a significantly higher bar on, do we need this next role, than there was 12 or 18 months ago. And then I think as we deploy technology, it's what else can we do with those folks that's higher value than they were doing before. Matthew, to your example of taking that team that was responding to inbound and putting them on outbound, and that was value creating for us. And then the third lens is probably there's an element of not needing to backfill as much. Certainly when we met as a group last week, there was no, we're going to go do, mass reduction in force. Like, none of us are thinking like that. It's more of how does the organization evolve? I think it also shifts to a certain extent the types of people that are going to be successful. And we need to think about that as we're hiring people going forward. The people who are more, technology in general just enables people to do more than they could have before. But in order for those people to take advantage of it, they have to be creative, they have to be curious, they have to want to learn, they have to want to push themselves, especially when the technology is nascent. And I think AI, one, it's very early. It does take wrestling with in order to get value out of it. And so people who are willing and excited to do that wrestling are going to have a force multiplier at their disposal relative to someone who's not. And then also, I think the capabilities of AI and the landscape is shifting so fast that sort of quote unquote like well-baked AI solutions that work out of the box for folks, like those capabilities are going to age quickly because the lag between something new that's not polished or a model advancement and then that making it into a super polished product that just works out of the box, in that lag period, AI is just going to get that much better. And so if you're willing to do the wrestling and you're willing to be curious, like you're just going to be able to do more things than someone who's just waiting for the turnkey solution.
Perfect segue, guys. We have about 5 minutes, and then I want to get into questions. So tight answers right here. If I'm sitting out there and I haven't even started this journey, how do I make sure I don't get left behind? That would be one of my fears. Vikas, we'll go to you first, then Peter, then Todd.
I'm going to say two things. One, I think Peter was talking about feeling left behind. A couple months ago, I saw a tweet conversation by Boris, I think his last name is Cherny. He's the inventor of Claude Code. And then Karpathy, who is one of the inventors of AI in general. And they were talking about how both of them are feeling left behind. So if those people are feeling left behind, like it's okay to feel left behind. The second thing is like, just dive in. My recommendation would be Cowork, but pick one of the tools that was mentioned on this podcast and like just get in there and start wrestling with it. Like there's no way to learn how to do this without doing it. And to Matthew's point, like you're not going to break anything.
All right, Peter.
Yeah, a couple suggestions here. One, pick one of these tools, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, whatever, and get an account and get like, they all have like the equivalent of like a $20 a month plan. Get that plan, pay for it through your business or ask your boss to pay for it and install it everywhere. Install it on all your computers, your laptop, your phone, everything, because it'll all kind of sync up. And that's really handy. And just start using it. Just try everything that you would have put into Google, start with that. That's like a first step. I really like this phrase from the lean manufacturing world. And it says, fix what bugs you. And I encourage you to fix what bugs you in your business, especially. Use Claude Cowork and Claude Code, even if you're not a coder, to try to fix what bugs you with small, tiny little apps that do a very narrow but very specific thing. Not even apps, just like little tools, you could even call them. There's a whole ecosystem with Claude, like skills and plugins and stuff that you can dive into if you want. But try to find something that bugs you and try to fix it with AI. And if you don't know where to start, ask the AI. Hey, here's this thing. It really annoys me. What do you recommend I do in order to fix it? Like, should this be an app? Should this be a skill? I don't know anything about this world. Please talk to me like I have no AI experience, and it will walk you through it step by step. The last practical example, and I'll put it in the chat, I really like this one newsletter. There's a friggin' billion AI newsletters, but I finally found one that's halfway decent. That's not an affiliate link or anything. It's free. It's called Evolving AI Insights. I think it's once or twice a week. So I read that from time to time just to sort of keep up with stuff.
Good stuff. Todd?
Yeah, I'll just give everybody just one really simple thing you can do. So if you have a Grok account already, just go and do this now. If you don't, go and just start up a Grok account. They've got something on there called task agents, which is just like a scheduled agent that will go out and do something for you. and then just tell it. This is what I do to stay current on AI stuff. I just said every morning at 6 a.m., I want you to go and find all the news about AI for the past 24 hours, figure out what the major headlines are, what any new advancements are, and I want you to summarize that and tell me all about it every morning at 6 a.m. So when I wake up in the morning, I've got that waiting for me, just like a newsletter like Peter has here, but it's just a custom newsletter. And I've told it the AI things that I want to focus on. So I never have to worry about being behind and not knowing what's going on in the world of AI, because the AI is teaching me about the AI. It's very simple and something that anybody can easily do to stay current.
All right, we're going to go rapid fire here. Only one person, unless you just absolutely need to be a second answer, just to make sure we get to all the questions. So first question, Michael Lee says, has AI changed your per door economics yet, or is it still mostly saving time without changing the actual math? Peter?
I don't think it's changed it for us yet, but I think we're very close to that.
Catherine would like to know, with so many new tools coming out, how do you evaluate which ones actually help in property management and which ones are overhyped? Todd?
I would say do what I do, go to Claude and ask it. Just say, hey, I've heard about this new thing. What should I think about it? And it will go out and do the research for you. I did this for the new Cursor 2.0 LLM earlier today. I just said, what did you find about it? And I'll usually ask a competing LLM if it's competing. So I'm getting honest information. I don't want to ask Grok about Grok, but just ask the AI, because again, it's smarter than we are. It can find the information much quicker.
Was it you that uses Granola, Peter?
Yeah.
All right. With Granola, how do you prep people about recording the conversation, especially those states with recording laws? Does it do that automatically in the Zoom meetings?
Well, I'm in Ohio, is a single party recording state, but I normally just would tell them, say, hey, I've got a recorder going, but it's not on the screen. And if they ask me to turn it off, I just turn it off.
All right, Vikas, we use Appfolio. I don't know that we're going to be the best to answer this. I know Todd and Peter don't. Does anyone use Appfolio, know what AI systems integrate well with Appfolio software?
Appfolio has some of their own stuff, actually. So they've got their own AI phone, like a leasing bot, maintenance bot, that kind of stuff. And it's actually really good. I tested it out for a client. So, I mean, they've got some of their own stuff that you can start with, but then Appfolio has an open API now. So you can, if you're willing to pay an extra $1 a door, you can get access to a two-way API to connect whatever you want to it, really.
Vikas, anything you would add?
No, I mean, we use the API and it works well for us.
All right, Vikas, where has AI created the most measurable impact in your PM business? Has it moved the needle on a KPI? How are you measuring ROI, time saved, cost reduced, or even revenue generated?
I think where we've seen the most quantifiable impact is in leasing, because that's also where we've deployed it the heaviest. And so, and it, as Matthew said, in a very slow season, we had one of our most successful sort of leasing periods ever. I agree with what Peter said in terms of it showing up in the P&L. I don't think it has so far, other than we've cut some SaaS spend, but I think it will start to materially shift the P&L this year, and we'll start to see it show up in a much more measurable way, or in a dollars and cents way in 2027.
Todd, this one looks like for you. How are you handling change management when introducing AI tools to your team? And what approaches are you using to train team members who actively use these tools? Todd, seeing as you have eliminated some softwares like Notion, Calendly, following your own build outs, how has your team adapted?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is make it no different than them interacting with a team member. So I've set up our AI to where it's basically in Slack. So if they need to use it for whatever reason, they don't need to go to ChatGPT or go to Claude or anything like that. They're just talking to one of our AI agents in Slack like they would talk to a team member. So if they need some AI help, they can just ask it, hey, can you help with this? And it'll find out, and that sort of thing. So whether it's writing some copy or something else, they can just communicate with it just like they would any other employee.
I can't believe you got rid of Jotform. Don't you have like Your whole business is built on jot format, I thought.
Dude, go and ask Claude Code to copy your jot forms, and it'll just go in and pull it all out of the API and have it done in like 30 seconds. It's
Oh
insane.
gosh.
But isn't it integrated like to a million different things where emails, notifications are going everywhere and all kinds of stuff?
It is. I mean, it's a process over a few weeks, but I mean, it's easy to do. It's not a complex thing. You just tell Claude to do it, and it does.
Wow.
Peter, are you seeing larger portfolios for property managers in the future?
Larger portfolio, like each, like a property
Yours
manager.
per property
Yeah,
manager.
sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think so for sure. Getting back end help with admin tasks where, I mean, some people have solved this with pods where you have a property manager and one or two assistants kind of. I think like one of those assistants is now going to be an AI agent, which is going to allow effectively, if you count all the people in the pod, it'll be like more owners per, human employee.
All right. For anyone done anything for the accounting side yet?
I haven't, but Curran, our VP of Finance, actually slacked me the other day, and he said 5 hours with Claude Code, saving 60 hours of property accounting next month. So he has.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would say the same. If as long as you've got something like Rentvine, or I think you guys are on an enterprise solution for your corporate accounting, as long as it's got some sort of API, you could have it do everything that a person can do. So I mean, we've largely eliminated a lot of that back end work that you have to do for accounting.
We've seen a lot of AI implementation on the maintenance construction side, especially around triage and scheduling. That's a promotion. We've got Ray Hespin here in the next hour. Has anyone used AI? He just popped on the screen if you're listening. Has anyone used AI for route optimization successfully?
We're not yet.
No, it sounds like a great idea.
It's on the
though.
to-do list.
On the
I
roadmap.
thought that was like a famous unsolvable problem in mathematics, right? The traveling salesman problem.
Not anymore. Not anymore with AI.
Solved.
There you
And
go.
we may not be able to solve it, but I think we can do better than our human dispatchers.
For sure. The person deciding where the next stop is we can do better. If full-time labor costs significantly drop, shouldn't margin also dramatically compress? Competitors should emerge that will be able to offer similar services at a much lower price. How does a PMC or a vendor proactively think through that future potential margin compression? Peter?
You sell your business to Evernest.
We get screwed with it.
No, to answer seriously, yes, I am worried about that. I touched on that a little earlier. I think it's a very valid concern. I don't think we're going to see things like that this year, but I think 2, 3, 4 years, yes. There's going to be
there should be a margin expansion first, and
Yep.
then potentially margin compression as people race to get doors.
just like we're seeing AI native or AI first vendors come in and try to undercut and do more for less money, we're going to see property management companies built on top of those vendors or with in-house tech do exactly the same thing and undercut us on price or over deliver in some other way. So it's early days, but I think capitalism is a thing and we're going to see that I don't see how we couldn't.
I think something Peter just said I want to double click on, and Todd had mentioned something similar earlier in the conversation. Come under on price or over deliver, right? That margin can be deployed in multiple ways. It can be deployed in delivering the same quality of service today at a lower price point, or it can be deployed in delivering a higher quality of service. And that's sort of, to date, that's what we did with our leasing team. Todd, it sounds like you're doing that with your team and deploying them to deliver a higher quality of service. And ultimately, if you're competing on price and removing all the relationship element and the human element, you're going to be, I think, my opinion is we're going to be much more at risk of being disrupted in the way Peter mentioned, of having someone with a AI powered software that does 60, 70%. And if that other 20, 30% isn't done with a human touch and feel and a service quality level, then why are they paying for it?
Because how do we maintain efficient token usage?
It's a great question. I'm actually telling everyone to think of tokens as free right now. So I'm probably not the best person to answer it. Get that individual Claude $200 a month plan that costs them $4,000 a month and take advantage of that arbitrage while they're willing to subsidize you. So far, we haven't seen token cost be anywhere close to the value that we're deriving from it. So I would rather not slow down our use of AI to artificially optimize token cost. When that happens, we'll take a look at it. But for now, it's let's go as fast as we can.
Yeah, I would just say that I think the only person here on this call that has to worry about token usage right now is probably Ray, because he's doing so much when it comes to coding and everything. The rest of us, we're talking, if you're a heavy user of tokens, for AI code, you might burn through a few $100s a month if you're a small to medium sized PM business. So it's not something I would worry about.
All right, last question. Todd, why don't you take this? How does your organization balance encouraging creativity and innovation with AI while still maintaining control, safety, and compliance with the team members, employees?
That's a really good question, because I mean there is real security risk here, which is why I kind of poo-pooed OpenClaw a couple weeks ago in my newsletter. You do have to be really careful on this, because a lot of the data that we're dealing with is really confidential type stuff. We're talking financial data. Some of these APIs might expose social security numbers and that kind of stuff. So I would say you need to have a good understanding of what you're making available to your team when you use these tools. And until you do, Wolfgang talks about this a lot, you need an AI policy before you use AI in your business. So get that together, figure out what that looks like, all the permissions, everything else, before you actually deploy anything, because otherwise you can get yourself in trouble.
All right, property managers, I am going to kick you out, and we are going to welcome the vendor panel. Bye, guys. Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.